My name is Dmitri Vetze. I'm with Rock, Paper, Scissors. We're a music tech PR firm and also Music Tectonics, which is a conference and a podcast, a blog, and a community around music tech. And we've been interviewing a lot of folks about live streaming, and including some of our panels today on the Music Tectonics podcast. So Gigi invited me to help pull this together. So we're going to be talking about live streaming, both overall and also get into a little bit more detail around some tactical stuff as well. So I'm just going to go ahead and dive in with intros, and then we'll get the conversation going. So I don't know which direction these people are on your screen, but I'm going to start by, yeah, exactly. Right over here, we've got Ari Evans. Why don't you wave, Ari? That's Ari. Ari is the founder and CEO of Maestro, a live streaming platform. He introduced it to the music industry and kind of got a lukewarm response when he came out of the gate, and realized there was a ton of interest from the esports video gaming world and has gotten a ton of traction there. And guess what? When COVID-19 hit, all of a sudden, the musical world got interested in as well. So welcome, Ari. I'm going to keep going with quick intros, and you guys can fill in. Make sure to unmute yourself as you come into the conversation. And then over there is Andy Levine from Atlanta. Andy was managing a band called Sister Hazel, and really was digging deep into how to create better connections between the band and their fans, just deepening that relationship. Fell upon this cool model of doing cruises, and launched a company called Six Man, where they did cruises that were festival based. So you basically go to a festival that's on a cruise ship, and Six Man is that company, which Andy led to great growth and then sold to Norwegian Cruises. And now he has a new company called Topeka, and Topeka is a really interesting model. He launched end of last year, again trying to deepen relationships between artists and fans, and kind of provides a few different options. You can go into Topeka and see the opportunity to just do kind of a VIP meet and greet with an artist you love, or hire a band to serenade, or an artist to serenade somebody for their birthday or for an anniversary, or you can even do like a house concert type Zoom experience as well on Topeka. So that's Andy in Atlanta. Wave, Andy. Sitting on the porch. Awesome. Yeah. Must be warm out there.
Yeah.
And over there is Emma McGann, singer-songwriter from the UK. You knew it when you saw her hair. But Emma is an amazing performer who leans heavily into technology, does stuff with crypto, has her own Alexa skills on smart speakers, can play games. You can play games with Alexa, learning trivia or lyrics about Emma. But she's also has been an early adopter on live streaming as a music function, and really grew up on live streaming with the YouNow platform, and now has transferred over to Twitch and basically tries all sorts of cool stuff. What's up, Emma? How are you?
What's up, guys? How you doing? You okay?
Doing good. So did I leave anything out of any of your intros? Raise your hand if I messed up anything there. All right, cool. I just wanted to give deep dive because we've only got 30 minutes, and I thought we could get into the conversation rather than, those panels where somebody just talks and then you realize the panel's over. Instead, I'd like to do some like rapid fire, ask each of you specific questions, and then as we get kind of halfway through, go more into discussion format, just so we can get to the meat of some of the issues. But I'm very flexible too, so just let me know. Show a sign. I can see you. And Ari, I forgot to mention, you're in LA. I mentioned that Maestro is a live streaming platform. One of the cool things about Maestro is that it's very artist-oriented. It's not about sending fans off to some other existing platform and kind of giving away your data and sharing all your monetization, all that stuff. It's much more about the artist having kind of a white label bespoke platform, which is kind of unique there. But let's start broad level and we can get more into the details. What was happening in live streaming in the music business over the last 3 to 5 years?
Well, and thanks for the intro. It's great to be here, Dmitri. So 4 years ago, you kind of mentioned a little bit about this story. We started with music festivals as they started to live stream. And that seemed to be picking up pretty good steam. We did Coachella, and we did Electric Daisy Carnival and Ultra and a bunch of other international festivals. And then we said, great, a logical place to go next will be individual artists. And that turned out to not be the right move because artists looked at us and said, what's live streaming? why do I care about live streaming, 4 years ago? That was really disappointing. So what's happened now is, and over the last 3 to 5 years, I think the music industry has moved a lot of the revenue over to the live space, and sort of an atomic bomb just got dropped on that whole world. So now they're moving quickly to live streaming and realizing, hey, maybe we need to look at some new monetization mechanisms. We're bringing a lot of our learnings from gaming, some of these free-to-play mechanics, giving donations, gamifying that a little bit, virtual gifts, stuff like that. And we're also combining that with more traditional methods like paywalls and also integrated merch. So really focusing more on how do artists immediately use these tools to make money today, because that's a big pain point. And how do we rewrite the rules of the model so, like, as you were saying, instead of restarting again, repeating the same cycle we did with Facebook where we take all of our audience and put it somewhere else, why don't we empower ourselves, empower the artists to do it on their own domain, on their own platform, with their own brand. They can remain faithful to who they are and what kind of experience they want to deliver to their audience. We think that's just a much better model for the future.
Right. And so just talking big picture, you're saying that there was kind of a lot of hesitation around live streaming. We're starting to see more of the Facebook Live, Instagram Live, YouTube Live stuff, obviously with the COVID crisis where people are stuck at home and performances are gone. But it seems like this moment is actually changing how both fans and artists and the industry are perceiving live streaming. Could you just say a little bit more about that transformation that you're seeing from before and now?
Totally. I think that live streaming is becoming the quintessential communication format of today's age, right? I think people of all ages are experiencing live streaming. I mean, many people for the first time. And it is in this new medium now, if we stop treating it like a TV broadcast that we just put on the web and actually leverage what the internet has to offer, we can create these deeper relationships that are direct between the audience and the artist. And that's really what I think we're really trying to push out there is, like, let's build an internet first experience. You have seen these platforms come up like Instagram and YouTube and all those. They're great, of course, but it's a lot of work to put on a stream, depending on what you're putting into it, and a lot of thought goes into it. And, if you're just putting something out there in the world and your measurement of success is just the number of views you got and these like reach metrics that don't really mean that much, then, what really was the point? We have a lot of artists coming to us from these platforms and saying, you know what, I've realized I'm comfortable with a smaller, more intimate audience that actually cares and will spend money with me, than going for these like huge numbers that look great on paper but don't actually move the business and move the needle forward. So I think that's kind of like a big shift that's occurring right now and will continue as this thing unfolds.
It is, yeah, it's really interesting to see new habits, and I like what you say that live streaming is becoming a primary form of communication in this moment that will probably carry forward. Andy, let's bring you into this. You launched Topeka just before COVID-19. What have you noticed about live streaming between late 2019 when you were getting this off the ground and now? Oh, you're on mute. Hold on.
I had my camera was messed up. So first of all, thank you for having me on. I enjoyed talking to you last week. It really got me fired up. And anyway, and Ari, I need to talk to you after this call if you have time.
Sure.
Emma, probably you. I just don't know much more about you yet, but I'm guessing.
Find out. You're going to need to talk to her too, man.
I need some help. I started this platform for two reasons. Number one, being around artists for 25 years, I saw fans try to have a real conversation, and you just can't do it where the fans are meeting the artist at shows. The artists have so much going on, they just couldn't do it. But I was lucky to have that window, and I wanted to create a platform where artists could do this from home, where they'd be comfortable and not distracted or worried about the show, and the fans would really get to have a real conversation. And the platform would be a natural barrier so that you wouldn't be overwhelmed by being so close, and the artist wouldn't be overwhelmed by you being so close. So we have a moderator for everything that starts and looks after and helps facilitate the wrap up, so the artist can show up and just be the artist and not have to worry about all the things that come with it. But what I've noticed is that artists are, they were excited about it before, but now people are like, I want to engage. I want to feel connection. I can do these live streams where I'm just playing in front of my computer or whatever, and it's going out to the world, and maybe 50,000 people are there. But just like a Facebook, like it looks good, but you don't get the back. You're not feeling the connection. So we're trying to do one-on-one up to 20, 30 people, where we're doing these little Q&As where each person gets to ask a question, and then everyone gets to hear them answer it back. So we're finding an opportunity to tag on to live stream. So we'll be the backstage hangout after, do the free live stream, and then invite 20 or 30 people to pay or donate or whatever. So that was one reason. The other reason was I had been coaching, people living in generational poverty for the last 4 years since I sold Six Man, and I wanted to create a culture where I could empower and employ this underserved community. And I've learned so much and made so many mistakes in understanding the difference between empowering and entitling and all these things that I'm learning every day. And it's just so much that I'm learning to see. But my dream is to kind of build this platform to give fans a chance to see their artists in a way that you just can't ever do it. And then give artists a chance to make money at home and get to know their fans, get inspired, and then create an opportunity for an underserved community to have a real career in a culture that really cares about them and is supporting them and building life systems and all that. So it's a huge thing we're taking on. But now artists are asking us to come and do the streaming. So Ari, I need to talk to you. People want to do both. They want us to be a one-stop shop where, hey, let us stream to 50,000 and then invite this many people back or whatever. So I need some help.
Yeah, I think it's going to be a mix, the future, right? You need both kinds of experiences for sure.
I'm glad you brought that up. Emma, you've been operating in a parallel universe from the music industry as an early adopter. So newcomers have a lot they can learn from you. And it's just great just to see you come into a panel where we're all on porches or offices or whatever, and you see your video and you're like, this person knows what they're doing. You're like, there's a rock star sitting next to us on a Zoom right now. But let's start with what's the why of live streaming for you? Because you come at it, this isn't let's translate some real life thing to a facsimile to try to make the same thing. You've been doing this, like Ari said, as an internet first experience. I mean, you just had a 20-day tour that was about to start April, May, right before this all hit in the United States, your first big tour in the United States. And you went right back to live streaming, were able to make up all of the investment of the revenue that you were about to lose on that tour. Tell us why you've been doing live streaming all along, and then tell us a little bit about the experience and the kinds of stuff that Ari and Andy are talking about with the interaction with fans and how it all works for you.
For sure. Well, first of all, thanks for having me. It's lovely to be here. And it's so refreshing to hear your missions, Ari and Andy. It's really refreshing for me as a live streamer, for some other people to see value in the kind of format. So I've been a live streamer for 6 years now. I started out on a platform called YouNow, and I've also live streamed on YouTube and Twitch since then. And initially when we started, it was really to kind of get that reach, to get the music in front of more ears, really. And then it kind of just spiraled into this snowball of, it became my full-time job. And like you say, I was finding these connections with the audience, the existing audience I already had who were tuning in, but also this new flow of people that were coming in each and every day. And it in the very early beginnings, it was very unusual to get used to. I was used to, touring around the UK in venues and at schools. And, the reality is you are sat in front of a camera wherever you're set up. And it does take that kind of transitional time between, getting used to interacting with people in that way. For me now, it's like second nature. But those connections that I've built over the last 6 years with fans have been so valuable to me, much more valuable, I think, than, me funneling in money into something that's not going to bring back that value. So the kind of most important factor for me in live streaming is the community building, is interaction with the fans in that moment and allowing them to lean into the content rather than just, it's not a video where they just sit back and consume it. They have an imprint on what's happening in front of them. And it's very much like, we're lifting the barriers at a live show and, inviting them on the stage to kind of experience it with us. So that's kind of the why for live streaming with me. With the US tour, we were trying to tie in something where, my virtual kind of live stream background could be something in the live traditional sense as well. So our original idea was to do a hybrid tour where fans on the other side of the world that may never ever get a chance to be at a live show, they could be there as well. We wanted to make it as inclusive as live streaming has always felt for them at home and for me, the artist, as well. So the idea was to run this 21-day of traditional shows, and then every other show we were going to live stream, and where they could pick up a virtual tour pass. And we've kind of pivoted since obviously COVID-19, where I'm hosting virtual shows back home now, which are more in line with a traditional kind of performance. My live streams can chop and change from just me and an acoustic guitar to a Q&A, to a giveaway, to games, to just it's a even balance of music and personality driven content. So really that's the why for me with live streaming.
That's awesome, Emma. I'm going to skip around from what my plan was, because I really want to ask you what tips you have for artists or managers who might be looking to do well with live streaming for the first time.
For sure. I think like the first question people have been asking me is, how do you monetize it? How can we monetize it straight away? There's obviously like paywalls in place for certain platforms where you have to meet a certain criteria to be able to earn as an artist. And really the monetization, as valuable that is at this moment in time, it shouldn't be the first thing you're thinking about if this is going to be a long-term thing. We're talking about live streaming in this moment, and like you said, it's like an atomic bomb in this space where it is becoming so saturated with so many different people coming through. But in terms of making it a long-term thing, the first tip I would say is make sure that the interaction is actually happening. I think that's probably a kind of transitional thing that a lot of artists will probably find weird to get used to. Perhaps, I don't know, some managers are a little bit concerned or paranoid about what their artists might say on a live stream. Maybe they don't want them to do it. But no, it's one of those things where I feel like it's getting used to that communication between you and the audience, and speaking to really what could be up to however many people are watching you at the same time, and making everybody feel welcome in the broadcast is a very important thing. And looking at it as a community building tool around your music, I think that's the most powerful thing to take from it, and the first tip I would give to anybody.
Awesome. That's great. Thank you. Ari, you've worked with a lot of artists pre and post crisis or during crisis. What other tips do you have for artists and managers who are looking to live stream for the first time?
Well, I just want to piggyback and kind of, say something sort of similar to what Emma just covered, which is that there really needs to be that interaction. I think a lot of times when artists are, on a stage, there's just like the crowd, and the crowd is sort of like, one blob in a certain sense, right? When you're in a live stream, you might refer to someone by name, right? Like by their username in the chat, or, some other way that you're actually communicating in a one-on-one basis. That can definitely be a little unusual at the beginning. And when we talk to artists, we tell them like, no, that's actually what you should be doing. It's going to make their week. Right? We do this in both like an automated and non-automated way. For example, if you donate to the artist while you watch, we call it showing love, then, you automatically get a shout out. Your name comes up on the screen, and that's been popularized by platforms like Twitch. But then, even if that comes up, like the artist should see, oh, wow, someone just donated. Let me just say, hey, thanks, Jonah, for that tip. That was awesome. Right? That makes a huge, huge, huge impact. And also when it comes to like Q&A sessions, as Emma was saying, because these streams, we recommend that you do a variety of different kinds of streams, right? Like it shouldn't always just be you with the guitar. Maybe sometimes it should be just a dedicated Q&A sesh. Mention the person who submitted the question when you answer it. It's just like these little things that really go a long way, because that's what I think the fans are looking for. They want to be like recognized by their star. And to the extent that you can actually bring that into the experience, it's just going to make all the difference. That's the biggest tip for me. Authenticity is really important. I think another thing we're putting out there into the world, and this definitely is kind of, I think, right in line with Andy's business, is think about audience segmentation, right? You don't need one experience that fits all fans. You should design different experiences for different parts of your fans, And you can even think of it from like, some might be free and some might be paid. We're experimenting with some ideas that are like, you have that show, you have that stream that's for 50,000 people. And then like Andy said, you have the private show for 100 people. And maybe the private show is, $100 a ticket, or, it's for the super fan. We did a stream the other day where, one person donated $5,000 in the stream to the artist, which was a really reasonable percentage of the total revenue that was even brought in that show, right? Like, how do you make that person feel really special? We know who they are, right? And we're surfacing that to you in real time. It's all about like, it's all about looking at it with a different lens than how we look at television, right? And the traditional formats out there that are really just one to many, and that's it.
Yeah, that's cool. Thanks for those examples. It's really, really, really interesting. Andy, I mean, you're starting to see some of those interactions between artists and fans, the thing that you kind of brought you into doing what you're doing. Can you describe or tell us a specific story about one of those experiences of what fan interaction can look like in the format that you're doing it in?
Yeah, I mean, I think you guys, it's so refreshing to hear Emma and Ari talk like this. It's good because you have these senses and you need, it's not until you get out there and see it, what we're doing, or you hear, people who've been doing it way longer than I am to kind of validate that we're on the right track. So I'm so grateful that I got to be included and hear from you guys. But yeah, to Ari's point, I tell the artists all the time, hey, I think a big reason people are paying is they want to hear you say their name. Just look at them and say their name. They want to be seen and known. And we're trying to set up things in that. And I feel like when, like, I have an artist that she's so good at this, and like, she'll be having a 15-minute conversation, a one-on-one, and she has people coming back, once a month. Now they're just coming back to check in, and they're building this kind of friendship, and they're not starting from scratch every time. They're like, hey, how's Jules, your dog, and whatever happened with that, and the artist is like so welcoming and like asking about them. So those are the things that we're seeing that are really special, where the fan shows up ready to ask 100 questions and just get these answers, and then the artist completely freaks them out by going, hey, tell me about you, you know what I mean? Like, I feel like those are the moments that I'm really kind of snapshotting and sharing with anyone that's coming on the platform, just to remind them, like, listen, we had a thing at Six Man, it was like, make the guest the star, right? Make the fan the star of the show. Express your gratitude for them, giving you a job, right? I mean, and making their vote. So yeah, so that's, I mean, we have so many, but I hope that answers your question. But yeah, I'm loving it.
Awesome. No, thanks. That does answer the question. We've got about 6 minutes left. I have some more questions. Some Q&As are starting to come in, so feel free to submit through the Q&A of the Zoom if you're listening. While you do that, I want to just ask, I mean, this is awesome. The three of you all have different perspectives, come from different backgrounds, and you have both big picture as well as some tactical advice, which is super awesome. I'm curious, what trends do any of you see emerging in the future of live streaming? Maybe I'll kick it to you, Emma, since you're trying everything. Is there anything that's emerging that, we kind of assumed to go with an overview and background and some tactical stuff for our audience? There may be some folks who are a little further along. What else should people be looking for? How do you get to the cutting edge of what to be considering as live streaming continues to evolve and get traction?
I would say in terms of trending going ahead, I mean, I think artists just coming into this really need to take it in stages. It can be very kind of overwhelming to kind of do your very first stream. We're seeing a lot of artists, lean on Instagram for that. I think it definitely helps to have that production value if you have the right equipment at home. In terms of like the interaction and what we're going to see in the future, I think, we're going to see more in terms of having the fans actually in the broadcasts, almost talking as we are now. That's something that you now are already doing and have been doing for a long time. And going back to what you guys have been saying about, calling out a fan's name, I cannot even describe to you how wonderful it makes them feel. And it's really lovely to kind of see that when they're chatting in the chat, or when, we guest them up. I feel like that kind of moment where they're almost on a video call with you. I feel we're going to see that more. We see that with Instagram Live already. But I think there's room for more interaction there in terms of tech, in terms of like what they could do together in that moment, whether it's a game, whether there's a voting poll system that, the audience can take part in, where they vote for what song you're going to sing next. I think it's going to be a space that is still going to evolve from this point. I think it's, in this moment right now, there's a lot more eyeballs on the format, which I think is a great thing. I think it's going to help it evolve in the future. But really, I think the way we interact with fans and how they're able to interact in the stream, we're going to see just a whole field of different options open up from this point forward.
Awesome. Thanks, Emma. I'm just going to read a couple of questions. So Ari, as you're answering the current question, you can also be processing because we only have a couple of minutes. I just put in the link, by the way, guys, Music Tectonics, I put our live streaming podcast coverage. I did a full interview with Emma, a full interview with Andy. Ari, we'll schedule one as soon as you have time getting through your customer service requests. But check that out if you want to go deeper listening to Emma and Andy with what they've learned. And before you answer, Ari, Francisco Cetraro asked, how do you deal with the delay between what you do on the stream and the comments from the audience? Somebody, Jane Slingo asked, what are your processes for licensing recording rights for live streams? And somebody else had one more question. Oh, what kind of money are people going to pay for experiences in the next 6 months? But Ari, I know you were about to say something about this. Where's the future going as well?
Yeah, I just want to echo a little bit about the whole idea about this being a new format, right? We're going to design new elements of the format, right? We did a show with Erykah Badu a couple weeks ago where the audience chose in real time the set list. And then we had another show where the audience chose in real time the performance style of each song, between 3 different rooms that each had a different instruments and different performance styles. So the set list was predefined, but the show kind of really was directed by the crowd, which is really, really cool. I think we're going to see a lot more of that. We're talking with artists about doing limited edition merch drops that happen during a stream and other really crazy stuff that, wouldn't make sense in a normal television broadcast. So I totally agree. I think that's where it's going, and we want to stay at the forefront of evolving the medium. That's a big part of what our vision as a company is. Now, to answer some of these other things that just came in, the licensing rights issue is very complicated, and some startup needs to form to solve that problem. Please, somebody on the call, start a company, solve this problem. It is horrible, and we need an automated system to do this. I mean, everyone's losing by not having it, right? The music industry traditionally has shot itself in the foot many times with digital. I think one of the trends we're going to see is we're going to not be afraid to ask, to put a paywall in front of content if it's high quality and highly produced content. I think fans have been demonstrating, especially now that they're willing to pay. I think we're going to see a lot more of that. And the other question was, I missed the first one. I don't see it here in the list.
Oh, I lost it too.
It was going to be, it was actually also from Jane that the question of how will this be monetized with whose money in the next 6 months was part of that, and also
I think the question was the one about how you deal with the delay between
right.
The delay.
Yeah. So the answer to that one is simple, because there's newer streaming technologies that are very low latency. On our platform, it's 1 to 2 seconds, so you really don't even notice it when the latency is that low. It feels completely real time.
Well, I think maybe. Emma, I think maybe what they're saying a little bit is you're performing, but you have to kind of follow the chat as well. And sometimes there's a delay. You do something on stage, and then later you're like, oh, we missed that chance. I'm not sure. That question might also be related to, as a performer, how do you manage a chat and performing and interacting and all that stuff?
It's almost like having 100 conversations at once sometimes. But I think it comes with practice. You get used to it, and occasionally when there's a pocket in a song where I have breathing space to shout out a name who's dropped a lovely tip or something, I'll totally do that. And if not, I'm sure I kind of make a mental note of who's said what and who's dropped what in terms of gifts and things, so I could thank them at the end. I think it definitely comes with practice, but I try and make it. It's important for me to try and say it in the moment as much as possible, for sure. Yeah. And
you told me on the podcast when I interviewed you that you had a background in radio journalism, and so it helped you to sort of keep track of multiple things at once, which you kind of just have to get used to.
Yeah, I think I've kind of got used to that flow, just like in terms of like projecting my voice and like, making sure everybody's acknowledged, I guess. Yeah.
So if you're on the chat, Gigi's been posting. There's a Slack channel where conversation can continue. She also said we can stay a few more minutes in this room since they're heading into break overall. Nobody else is coming into this room for another 15 minutes. Andy, Ari, Emma, raise your hand if you're good with going on for like 2 more minutes. You guys good? Yeah, okay, cool. Andy, I saw you shaking your head earlier as Ari was talking about the kind of interactions that he was describing. What were you thinking then?
I mean, I love it. I can't wait to talk to you. I hope you have time today to talk after this, because I have big artists that are calling me because like we've trusted you with our fans for all these years on a cruise ship and all this stuff, and we want someone we trust. And can you help us find a solution? I'm like, yeah, I got part of it, but I need the other. But I mean, just this, making the guest the star, the fan, the star. Having the artist submit themselves to their fans in that moment, which is a vulnerable thing to do with what song I'm going to play and what arrangement, and to me is the consummate way for an artist to just show appreciation for their fans and trust. And I think when the artists do it, as scary as that is, I think afterwards it makes it feel new for them. It's not phoning it in. I think they feel inspired. I think songs follow that, and so I just hats off for like bringing that to life, because that also sets the bar for anyone else coming in, right? And I love that the artists are going to have to push and push and push during this time, because I think they should. Sometimes artists can, get scared or whatever. So I wish I could have seen that.
To jump on that, Andy, when we first started in the music space, we would go out there to like big artists and say, you know what, once a week, just turn on the camera for an hour while you're in the studio.
Yeah.
Right? And just do it consistently at the same time every week. And eventually I think you'll form a following and you'll feel really good about this. And we just got so much pushback about how like we don't want to expose the fans to the creative process. We want them to have the packaged final solution, right? And I just said like, I don't know if you're missing this, but like Gen Z and everything below that is all about authenticity. They want the raw thing. They want the unproduced thing. I want to be exposed to, I want to aspire to be you. I want to see your process, right? It's not going to make us think less of you. No, It's quite the contrary. We think more of you because you're willing to be vulnerable and you're willing to show us more about what it takes to do what you do. Yeah. So
I agree.
We're going to see much more of that now.
Yeah. For sure, I agree. Like I would say it's almost like the mystique of the rock star is being broken down a little bit because times are changing and fans want to lean in more and experience things in the moment with you. And I think they really appreciate that. And I think that's why in terms of like people dropping gifts and tips and things like that, I think they do that because they see that you're in that vulnerable moment and you are sharing the creative process with them, and they're willing to support you because of the nature of what you're doing. So yeah, I couldn't agree more.
Awesome. Emma, when is your next live stream that our listeners can go check out?
So I'm going live on Twitch tonight at 8:30 p.m. We do live music on Twitch every single weekday. I go live on YouNow and do the same pretty much every day too. And in terms of the virtual tour that I'm doing that every single Wednesday, and that's from my own website where virtual tour pass holders can log in. They get lots of perks with the passes that they pick up, and they get to see me in more of a kind of venue stage environment. The Neon Jungle, which is essentially just a spare room in my house, has turned into my mini venue for now. So they get to experience that as well. Awesome.
Ari, you got any big shows that people are using Maestro for coming up, or do we have to wait and see what comes out next?
Yeah, later today, starts in 3 hours, is the Room Service Music Festival, which will be kind of a combination of Trap Nation and Chill Nation, if you guys know those two huge YouTube channels out there. So check it out. It's roomservicefest.com, and that'll be the next one. And then there's a bunch of concerts coming up over the next few weeks. Awesome. I can post them in the Slack channel.
All right, cool. Hey, Andy, are there any artists that are killing it on Topeka that people should dig into? Maybe they got $50 to spare, or $100 or $300 or whatever it costs. Unmute yourself. You're on mute.
Yeah. So I would say, you know what? I don't know if you're familiar with Molly Tuttle. She's like a female bluegrass guitar player. She was the first female to win bluegrass guitar player ever, and she is the sweetest person. She's been giving guitar lessons out of her house for the last couple of weeks, and people are so in awe. But she just disarms them and makes them feel so comfortable. And she is unbelievable. I don't even know what to say. But Molly Tuttle has just really gotten me so excited.
So awesome. This has been so great to have you all just digging in with this big picture, this tactical stuff, and to see all of your hearts and passions and souls shining through. It's so meaningful to have an artist with us who's done this. It's so meaningful to see folks that are building platforms that are not just this opaque tech founder screen, but to see your smiles and your enthusiasm. So thank you all for joining. Like I said, for those of you who are listening, would love to have you come check out the Music Tectonics podcast, where we have a whole series of 7+ interviews on live streaming. We're also doing a weekly Webs Day for music tech online meetups, and we'll be announcing a summit of our own that will also be free coming up on how artists and everyone else can address living in crisis, living remotely. Let's give a big whoop whoop to Gigi Johnson and Storm for putting this together. Thanks for inviting us on, and I'll go over to the Slack channel for a few minutes. Thanks so much.